All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Dad at Arms show. I'm your host, Dad at Arms. I also go by Colt. And with me today is a really exciting guest. We have Rob David joining us today. Welcome, Rob.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining me. Before we get started, would you like to kind of introduce yourself and tell everybody what it is you do with Mattel and Masters of the Universe?
Sure. My name is Rob David. I am Vice President of Creative Content for Mattel Television. I'm also an executive producer on He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, which I developed and ran, and an executive producer on Masters of the Universe Revelation and the upcoming Revolution. MOTU is this is the right audience to say MOTU. Sometimes I forget.
Oh yeah.
I know that. Yeah, but sometimes our world, if we're outside of our, and I say our, including mine and Mattel's and all of the fandom, when we're talking to people outside, and you say MOTU because you don't even think about it, and people are like, "Wait, what?" And you're like, "Oh, right." MOTU is a passion and obviously a huge priority for what we do in Mattel Television. But of course, we are developing and creating and producing shows for lots of different things, and from Hot Wheels to Barbie to other IP that Mattel owns that we'd love to take a crack at making into great TV shows.
Awesome. Well, that's great. So we're coming right off of San Diego Comic-Con, where we had a lot of exciting news revealed. We had a lot of new toy reveals and things like that. I thought we'd kind of start there.
Oh, please.
Talk about the convention. So with the toys, we saw a lot of new reveals for Origins, and we saw some reveals for Masterverse. I thought we'd kind of go through Origins real quickly and kind of talk about that stuff, and then kind of talk a little bit about Masterverse.
Sure. I mean, I work on the television side, so I'm not totally the expert or spokesperson for the toys, although I love them. I was really excited at what they saw. So if I don't have an answer, I will, of course, defer and maybe hopefully set you up with an interview with one of their amazing people on the design team.
Awesome. Sounds good. So the first thing I wanted to talk about with Origins is the cartoon collection that was revealed based on the Filmation designs. Those look amazing.
Those are totally amazing.
Yeah.
Really cool.
So, and it looks like they have a new buck that they're built on. They're not built on the standard Origins body.
It looks like that. Again, I hesitate to tell you one way or the other because I know people are so super interested in that, and as am I. But if I say the wrong thing, I'm sure there are people on the toy team who will be like, no. But yes, I'm not the expert, but I would be happy to get them. They would love, I'm sure, to get on here and talk about toys.
Okay. Well, we don't have to go into specifics. Why don't we just kind of run through what was revealed and kind of look towards the future. So we have the cartoon collection. There was a few other Origins figures like Night Stalker and Rock On.
Yeah.
Stendar was one I was excited for. I remember having him as a kid.
Yeah.
And then we also got some cool new figures that are new to MOTU with
the new Eternia,
Lady Slither and
Lady Slither,
and Fangor, which are based. If I'm correct in this, they're based on Axel's work. Is that right?
I believe so. Yeah, Axel's terrific.
Yeah. Oh, his art is beautiful.
It's not coming as a shock to anybody, but Axel's terrific.
Yeah. We all love his work. So we saw that stuff.
I'll tease, but I can't reveal anything. But if you're a fan of Axel's art as it relates to MOTU, there might be something coming up. We'll get to see a lot more of it in sequential panels, no less.
Ooh, I like that. That'll be fun. So we've got those. As far as the future of the Origins line, is there other things that we can kind of look forward to in terms of like figures or play sets that you can talk about?
Oh, I'm not the right person to ask. I wish I was.
That's okay.
I apologize.
Yeah, no worries at all. Okay,
I know we all work at Mattel. I know we all work at Mattel, and definitely, I've seen some amazing stuff, but I can't speak for the toy line.
Okay.
Aside from being a fan and just loving it.
Sure. All right. So with Masterverse, yeah, there's new Eternia stuff coming out. There's new Revolution figures that are coming out.
Yeah. And
there's also new
packaging. Did you see the
yeah. That's what I was just gonna say. There's new packaging, and it looks so good.
Brilliant. I mean, it was such a great idea to bring the amazing artwork that they have. And if you like that artwork, and I'm not sure if it's been announced, so I don't want to. There might be a place for you to look at all of that amazing artwork in one collected. Has it been announced? I don't know.
Yeah. This is
okay.
the Dark Horse art book with all the Dark Horse art packaging art.
Oh my god, because it's so good.
Very excited.
And then they've actually brilliantly realizing how great it is and realizing how much packaging is part of why we collect toys and love toys. They put it onto the front, and then they've reduced the window on the figure. You still see the figure, but the fantasy, the idealized version of that character to become the art on the front is just beautiful. So that way when you display it too, it's really, really, really nice. Yeah, and I was just blown away the stuff that they've done on the Revolution figure, seeing, because we work on an animation and people at Powerhouse are amazing, right? But we do the standard kind of design, which is usually kind of in a stock pose and a three quarters, and you do a rotation because it's you design it for the functionality of knowing you have to animate it, and then when you see it in the animation, it's come to life and idealized. But to have something beautifully rendered, as like a painted image that kind of evokes the classic MOTU packaging art, it just, oh my god, I was fainting from seeing. Yeah. Sorceress, Teela Sorceress, obviously, and many others. Yeah,
that's awesome. No, the book is very
comfortable talking about toys as a fan. That's clearly.
I think the biggest thing, aside from getting to look at all the art in a collected volume, I was able to clear space on my shelves because I'd been saving the box art, and stacking it on my toy shelves. And I was like, okay, well, I can clear this out now and add new figures.
I know, because I'm feeling the same way. I mean, off screen here in my closet, like I've got toys that are displayed, and it's just now I don't even know how to organize it anymore after a while, because I mean, packaging I always loved just from a nostalgic function, but now it's getting to be part of the entire beauty and point of clients, and now it's like double the thing. And if you take it out, I'm a fan of how a lot of people designing the collector lines are really getting good at allowing us to take the figure out without destroying the entire entire box.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, you're running out of shelf space. I can tell.
Yeah, so I've got this one. I've got a shelf over there that's about ready to tip over because it's full of stuff. I've got a shelf in front of me that's full of all my Ninja Turtle stuff.
I think our mutual friend Teddy, I think he's actually he expands his house to accommodate his toy.
I was joking.
Prove me wrong, Teddy, if you're listening. Prove me wrong. I'm right.
I think he'd be happy to prove you right on that. I think he'd be very proud of that. Yeah, I was joking with my wife about, the next time we do any housework that we need to add an extension on my room here before we do anything else. I don't think she liked that idea too much, but
yeah. I mean, the patient, and it's for the best. It needs to be, we're celebrating things we love. Yeah,
exactly. So we've got that really cool new packaging, and the new Eternia figures that were announced. We have the Man-at-Arms, we have Trapjaw, Snout Spout, and Triclops. We have Mechanic coming.
Mm-hmm.
I did have one question about Mechanic. With that, so he's got that neck extension that you can plug in. Remove the head, pop that in. If someone were to buy multiple versions of the figure, could they keep adding neck extensions to that?
I don't know. I wish I did. I will. I honestly, I will hook you up with the right people to answer those questions.
Okay.
I hope so. Unless they don't have that plan, in which case I'm like, I didn't want that. But I definitely. But the new Eternia line, I can just tell you, just from a story perspective, I thought that was a lot of fun. It's great to have variations, and I know Robert Rudman had a cool idea for how it all kind of. He's a copywriter on the packaging. I know he had a really good idea for how these worlds can collide, and maybe one day in another medium. it might be fun to kind of explore that. We, in the comics, we had fun with taking that multiverse approach to kind of showing the different storylines around some of those figures, which was great. And maybe one day they could all smash together and meet up.
Yeah, that'd be fun. With new Eternia specifically, we've got a lot of cool figures coming. Are there plans to get some female figures in the line, like with Teela or Evelyn?
I don't know. On the Revolution based stuff, yes. But I can't speak to the new Eternia line.
Okay.
What their plan is.
Well, cool. Well, let's jump into the Revolution figures then and kind of talk a little bit about them.
Sure.
So yeah, we've got Sorceress Teela was revealed, the Skeletor with all this tech virus stuff going on, which was super cool looking.
Skeletech.
Yeah. Love it. There's also the battle armor He-Man, which has Skeletor. Yeah. That's my favorite He-Man variation. In fact, just the other day I finally tracked this,
wild!
The NECA statue mini statue.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I've always loved battle armor He-Man. What's that?
Where'd you find it?
I found it at a like a vintage toy store, comic shop kind of place.
Did you have any idea it was going to be there, or was you?
I didn't. No, I walked in there just to see what they had, and
like a movie, it's like that's when the wind starts blowing, the light hits, and everyone in the store is like, "What's going on here? Why is he
exactly
He's crying?" Yeah,
yep, I probably cried a little bit. So yeah, I've kind of been keeping my eye out for that. I've seen them on like on eBay and places like that because it was just way too expensive. So I was very excited to see him. So yeah, battle armor He-Man, easily my favorite version of He-Man. So I'm excited that he is coming to Revolution. Like, that's exciting.
Oh yes, he is. I mean, there's a lot. We could talk about the show more in that context, but yeah, those figures are the first wave. It's really fun. It's a mixture of, on the one hand, progressing some of the characters into new. In the figures, it'd be variants, but just in the storytelling, it's the kind of next chapter, whatever issue they're dealing with. But at the same time, also having throwbacks to stuff we all love. And the battle armor is just something where to get it in animation, it's just too irresistible. There's a story reason for why he's wearing it. I can't give you exactly the reason, but there is, Andra has a little bit to do with
awesome
wrapping it and just even having the battle damage, having that thing go and switch over.
Very cool.
It's really a delight. It's a complete delight to be able to put that kind of stuff in.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things. So when part 1 of Revelation released, I remember just going through and writing out a whole document about what I thought might be happening with part 2. And one of the very first things I wrote down was like, well, Adam got stabbed, so he probably needs some battle armor to protect himself going forward. Yeah.
That would have been nice. That would have been good.
So that's exciting. We also got to see Gwildor show up.
I know, right?
That's awesome. I don't think a lot of people were expecting that.
No, I mean, we had a lot of fun working him into the story. I mean, it was organic. I mean, when we're trying to do these things, we want to make sure that everything, any nod we have to the past or any inclusion of something that we all wanted to see from the greater lore, is coming from an authentic, organic place. So in Revolution, where there's an exploration and emphasis on the tech part of the tech magic mashup that is completely core and central to Masters of the Universe, in the sense that there's a technological threat at play. I mean, you saw from the end of Revelation where Motherboard, which the cultists in the tech cultists in Snake Mountain were invoking, wasn't just a metaphor, that there was actually It took the form of a tech sorceress. Played by Meg Foster, which is just another too rich. But and you can also tell that she's at the end we tease that her relationship to Hordak, the Nosferatu of the stars, as I like to call him, who also is not afraid to dabble a little in tech himself. So there is a technological threat to Eternia, which we can get into more. So in that context, it's fun to to give a character like Orko, our little lovable magic Orko, like an ally, kind of more like a frenemy in the form of Gwildor, who knows how to kind of tweak the little tech stuff, and so there's a lot of fun there.
That's cool.
Wait till you find out who's playing Gwildor, and I will not tell you who.
Oh man.
You can scratch that question right out there.
In terms of voice actors, I know with we had Meg Foster is a motherboard. Mm-hmm. We had Alan Oppenheimer as Moss Man in Revelation. Are there any other of these legacy actors that might be lending their voices?
There's one legacy actor lending, and I'm not going to even use. I'm going to say their voice, so you don't even know. But at the end, I can't say more. But yeah, there's one that I think I cannot wait for you all to hear. And there's a lot of other some surprises. And Alan Oppenheimer, my goodness, I cast him in as a King Grayskull in the CG show. And then the greatest joy I got was when I finally got to the part where we're talking about showing the backstory of Grayskull and how he had gone to the Havoc and then being able to tell him. So can you give us a Skeletor crackle? Oh my god! And he's such a nice guy. So that he just went, yes, I will. It was unbelievable. That was the biggest joy of my life. There's a whole. Like a lot of times, again, it's the same thing where we're trying to cast organically and authentically and not just for stunting. And at the same time, if we can pull from something that we know means something to the legacy of MOTU or means something to us personally, it just adds on top of that. And on Revolution, it's Kevin and Teddy and me, each of us, we are like, we refer to ourselves as the triumphant. Kevin calls us the three towers of Eternia, and so sometimes it's Kevin who's like the first one to jump in and who we should get, and sometimes it's Teddy, and sometimes it's me, and we all sign off, but most of the time we're just egging each other on, like, yeah, go for it, let's do it. That's all it's fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
and you guys, you hit gold. I love all the voices that we've gotten in this series.
Oh, thank you.
We got Keith David for Hordak. That's amazing.
Keith David, I know, right? And he is he's so good at Hordak. First of all, he brings this gravitas, as anyone who knows his work. The first time I loved him in anything was Platoon, which goes way back.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't even born in 1986. I was already alive. I was already 67 by the time that movie came out. But in any case, he was so good in that movie, and obviously everything he's ever done afterwards, especially in the voice acting space and Spawn and Princess and Frog and you name it. But he has such he adds so much, not just gravitas, but complexity and nuance and thoughtfulness. And in talking to him about this, he talks about Shakespeare, and there's that kind of depth of this ruler, this mad ruler. Quality to him, and he really has brought Hordak to life, and in Hordak in general, but in this show, as you'll see, he really is, and I call him the Nosferatu of the stars, because he is this vampiric quality to him, and he's an intergalactic warlord ruler who has been playing a very long chess game with not just the universe, but with Eternia in particular, and moving all the different pieces, and he's really kind of about to kind of move his last checkmate move on Eternia, and Motherboard kind of fits into that. He as he has a technological base to him. His empire is based on tech, and he has a lot of different types of offensive and defensive capabilities to him that are based on tech, but he has dabbled in magic, and he has dabbled in definitely trying to recruit acolytes who are steeped in magic to help him achieve his goals. And you'll see Skeletor was once under his employ, so to speak, and I think Hordak in the start of the story felt like he hasn't gotten a return on his investment through magic that he was counting on. Yeah. So he's basically saying, all right, I'm putting all my chips on motherboard and tech, and let's just get this thing on. And that even includes, as you saw in the end of Revelation, what happened to poor old Skeletor, where he had the kind of tech implants put into himself. And so it's funny. And I'll stop rambling in a minute, but
no, you're fine.
There's a dysfunctional family unit in Motherboard, Hordak and Skeletor, and where you've got the two kind of paternal, the maternal and paternal figures, and then they're not only a child, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And anyone who's a Skeletor fan, and I am a huge Skeletor fan, because he is probably the best villain. It's like it's like the Mount Rushmore of villains, with Joker. I think he's right up there because he's brilliant. He's hilarious. He's clever. And I am also such a fan of his design. I think one of the reasons why he's so popular is his design, which is where you combine a robust, healthy body. Now he's blue, so I don't know how healthy you can call him, but you've got a guy who's clearly been to the gym and eating his vitamins, but then you combine that with the face of death, right?
Yeah.
And I think that combo is mesmerizing. Anyway, if you're a Skeletor lover, you can imagine that he's being on bended knee is not something that sits well with him for too long, let's just say.
Right.
And so he's going to work through his issues, let's just say, as he and pushes back against authority.
Awesome. Love it.
And Keith, just getting back to Keith, my goodness. So there's the richness in his performance. And when you have someone like Keith David sparring off on it with Mark Hamill and Meg Foster, it's just electrifying.
Fantastic. And so we've got Chris Wood as He-Man, which phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of fans obviously love John Irwin as the voice of their childhood He-Man, but hearing Chris and just hearing such a difference between his Prince Adam and his He-Man.
Yeah.
Also, just like the combination of them both, like it's very believable. It's very heartfelt, and he sounds like the kind of person that you could trust and be friends with.
That was very important. I mean, there's that duality. You need to have a duality between Adam and He-Man, but at the same time, they need to be one person, and kind of coming back to that same common root of goodness. And I think Chris totally nails that. There's the humanity of Adam, and there's the strength and rectitude of He-Man, but there's this underlying compassion and empathy, which is completely central to He-Man. I mean, that is the defining feature. I mean, to me, it's like whenever I'm starting on a He-Man story or working with someone, I just put that there's like a few things that are just core, right? And one of that is the goodness of Adam. It's the central thing, because it's what separates him from Skeletor. It's just that concept of power and your relation to it. And the thing that makes Adam so centrally powerful is that he can let go of power. Is that he's so strong he can let go of it. And the fact that he lets go of it at the end of every battle. I mean, think about that. What that means is like he could if you could turn into He-Man, right? Like right now, it's like why aren't you?
Why wouldn't I be sitting here as He-Man?
Yeah. Right, and the fact that he can, he fights, he protects the realm, and when it's done, he swords back into plowsheds, right? I mean, he can put the sword back and revert back into the man, which is something that Skeletor could never do. I mean, that's the exact opposite of Skeletor. So it's great. I mean, I that dichotomy is something that's so important to me. I wrote a story in the comics in DC about like what would happen if Adam was ever removed from the equation, because it used to bug me when people would be like, "Oh, King He-Man," like King He-Man, like that's like it's really King Adam. It's in some ways, it's really about like, because Adam is the important central thing. Because if he's, if you remove the Adam equation, then what's left is just power incarnate. It's the humanity of Adam that just is what's really important. And without that, you can have disastrous consequences.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you bring up the comics where that takes place in the Eternity War comics. Where Teela shows him that dark future of what would happen if he never returned the power. I just love, like, it was cool to see that play out, and the conflict that it causes, and to see how despotic, he had become.
Right.
But then to see Adam make the choice and be like, well, if this is what it leads to, then the power isn't worth it, and just to see him shatter the sword and figure out a way forward without that. And then she says, and then Teela as a snake, sort of, she says, the answer is going to be is in Adam. That whole story in the comics were like, I mean, all of this is passion for me, but those comics are really where my wife was like, I'd be up at like 3 a.m. just writing everything down. I couldn't do it. So I loved it. It was really great. I love comic books in general. It's one of the reasons why, in addition to just shaping the MOTU story, I work really closely with the publishing team at Mattel, because I'm a big comic fanboy. And one of the things I love about comics is that you can really explore things without spending millions of dollars. Like if you make a movie, you have to spend 200 million, then another 200 million to market it, and it takes years. And if you're working on a TV show, anyone in animation, the thing of how long animation takes, you finish something, and in the time it's fully produced, your grandkids are excited to finally watch it. But comics is that pulp medium, and where you can just, you're only a few months ahead of it hitting the shelves, and just the immediate reaction. So you can just experiment and really just kind of dive deep in new big ideas. But yeah, that thing about He-Man is so central, and it's actually part of what is important in Revolution, which we mentioned a little bit on the panel at San Diego Comic-Con, because Adam now is, all of his life he had the secret about whether or not, no one knew except for a select few, that Adam and He-Man were the same person. And now everyone knows. And, there's the relationship that he had with his father, that core concept of his father's expectations for Adam and his perception of Adam's contrasted with his belief about He-Man, and his expectations for He-Man was a central part of the Randor Adam relationship. What's great is that even with that secret out, we're finding ways to advance that story and tell more stuff about that story, because his father, now they're reconciled and he loves both of them and he sees the whole picture. But now there's a new kind of the expectation of what it means to be a prince, in line for the throne, versus what it means to be the champion of Eternia. Like, can that be the same person? I mean, being the monarch of Eternia is a different job than being the champion of Eternia and the He-Man of Castle Grayskull. There's the scepter and there's the sword, which I made a big deal about in the CG He-Man show in some ways. And I also, Tim had a great bit about it in the Revelation prequel comic, and the conversation between Randor and Adam. And it's really kind of also really important to this storyline too, which is that, like, you can, if you're the king, you can't run off every single time there's an adventure. You can't just be like, I'll be back. Who knows? Good luck to you all, and then that's also a lot of power to have in one person. I mean, if you think about it, even though, yes, He-Man, when Adam puts away the sword and reverts back to Adam, he still has a lot of power by virtue of the fact that he's the prince, and unlike the He-Man power, he can't just turn that off. Right. Can he give back that power? So there's so much great stuff to explore there. And one of the things that was important to me, it was important in Eternity War, it's important in this, and it's important to Teddy and Kevin and Tim and everybody we're talking about, is that idea that,
in some ways, He-Man is a coming of age story, right? And it's about this young generation that is taking on powers and responsibilities, and as they grow up and to become the fullest sense of themselves. And in Eternia, where I had there was Adora and Adam and Teela as a triumvirate, and they were basically these three kids, and their parents were the Sorceress and Man-at-Arms and Randor and everything. Those were the older generation, and it's about how these three kids grow up together and come together again, and then in the end, what are they going to now do, going forward? And there's something in this story as well, is that Teela and Adam grew up together. They're kindred spirits, and they're both, when we start Revolution, they're in a sense stepping into the shoes of their parents, right? And so everyone listening, everybody who's ever lived has gone through that, where we all grow up and we all face this point where we're like, how do we honor the past and our parents, and what do we want to make the future like for ourselves and our loved ones? So it's kind of also part of the storyline there.
Awesome. Backing up a little bit, when we were talking about the goodness of Adam, and you kind of talked about it as this anchor point to MOTU lore, that this is one of the important things, and kind of, dealing with these relationships that these characters have with each other. One thing that I've noticed, and I've kind of latched onto over the years, and I've seen it pop up in different comics and different stories, is this relationship between Adam and Teela, where they grew up together and they love each other. And I've always kind of considered their relationship as another anchor point in this lore. And I mean, obviously they're my favorite fictional couple, and so I always like to see their relationship explored.
Good choice.
More. Yeah, absolutely. They're the best. It's Adam and Teela, and then it's Link and Zelda, and then Batman and Catwoman. Those are the top three.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
But yeah, can we talk a little bit? I want to talk about Adam and Teela just because they are my favorite. Can we talk a little bit about their relationship? We saw in the comics, we finally saw that they got married. Are we finally going to get to see it on screen? I know you can't talk about it, but I got to ask it.
I can't reveal what scenes particular, but I can echo that. Yeah, that those two are are core and central. I know Teddy and Kevin feel the same way, and it to me, I mean, I like, again, they really did grow up together, right? And I feel like, it's funny because I'll put it this way. Power of Grayskull, right? Or everyone wants to get their hands on the castle in some way. They're protecting the castle. They want to get their hands on it. They want to redeem it. Whatever. The power of Grayskull, power in and of itself is a very boring, generic thing. The power needs to mean something to each of these characters. So the way I see it is that for Skeletor, it means, generally speaking, it can mean legitimacy, right? And for Adora, it means redemption, right? And for Adam, it means family. It means love. And that's me personally. And there's no better way of kind of exploring that or bringing that together as to enter Teela as the new sorceress, as the little beating heart of Castle Grayskull. And that's what it means to him, and that's what it means to the two of them. I think she's absolutely central. She's core to the whole. Their relationship is definitely core, and that was one of the things we wanted to organically lead to in Revolution. Revelation was really important because we wanted to advance both of their storylines. We wanted her to also to come into her own, and part of that was her also realizing, seeing the whole picture, realizing there were secrets that were kept about herself that she didn't know, and seeing what her place was in, and also her and Adam not having anything between them in terms of being able to see each other authentically. I know that in Revelation she had issues, with the fact that it was kept from her. But I think over the course of the story and going into this, her and Adam are mended in that regard, in the sense that she does understand the whole context for why the people made the choices they make. And I think she also realizes that Cringer was right. I love that scene. And Stephen Root, man, so when Cringer tells her that you always knew who he was, you always knew who He-Man was. It's the same thing we were talking about earlier. It's that the reason why she liked Adam, the reason why she liked He-Man is the same reason, right? She always knew who He-Man was, and it's that same central goodness. So I think, and him, it's like that being able to fully express himself to her. And they realize that the two of them are children of Grayskull, both of them in many ways, and now they're growing up together. So I think fans are going to be very happy with that. And if anyone is a Teela Adam fan, I think you'll be happy. You won't have to ship them. We'll do that. We'll take care of that for you.
Fantastic. That's all I want.
yeah. It's all any of us want.
And if we get to see He-Man punching Skeletor a few times, that's okay too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, it definitely the spine of it, right? Is there's the arcs. The arc of it is carried by He-Man and Skeletor and their central issue. Teela has a really crucial mission in this, spinning out of Revelation. It's kind of to the side of the main thing, and it kind of comes back in. She goes on a really interesting journey that requires that she kind of tap into very ancient magics that are even as old, if not older, than Zor. And you know how MOTU works. Usually new powers come with some glow ups. So there might be some more transformations in store for her, and I hope you like the color green. That's all I'll say.
Absolutely. I had a hunch.
Yeah.
Leading to that.
There's some fun stuff.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool. No, but I think as I grow older and as becoming a husband, becoming a father, and things like that, when I look to my heroes in comics and video games and stuff, it becomes more and more about how I relate to their relationships, as opposed to like the big battles and the big fights and stuff like that. And I don't know, maybe I'm getting softer in my old age, but it's just something that I tend to latch onto a lot more.
So. I don't think so. I think, look, there's some over the top action in this. I mean, there's some insane action, and there's some great fights between him and Skeletor and Hordak. Oh my God. So there's and Powerhouse is great on everything. They're just amazing visual storytellers and great people. And they, as Kevin always says, the joke is that they basically just in the scripts just write fighty fight, and then Patrick and Adam and their team there, they can really come to life. But yeah, without the emotional, the personal stuff, it's boring. I mean, it's ultimately boring. It means nothing. The first Rocky, what the heck is Rocky without Adrian? I mean, what is that? What the single best moment of that movie is the freeze frame. It's when after he goes the distance. I'm going to tear up talking about Rocky. Have you heard of the movie? But I mean, the idea that he just wants to not fall down and go the distance. He doesn't even win in the first movie. He doesn't fall, and he stands. And then she's the one that it's really about Adrian. The fact that he's screaming for her, and then Paulie lets her in, and they come together and they freeze frame on them. And I remember listening to the DVD commentary of Sylvester Stallone. He was talking about that. He said that they found they shot. The scene goes on. The two of them leave the ring. They walk off, and they said no one that just deflated it. It was he just basically found the right frame to end on when they're together. And he said he just wanted to that was the zenith of their happiness, and he can now, through the virtue of film, have that go on forever. And I bring this up also because that moment, that freeze frame, and Sylvester Stallone's commentary on that was my inspiration in the DC comics, when the scene when Adam and Teela kiss for the first time, and it's it's like a moment, and he's like, if I could live in this moment forever, that's what I would do if I could take it into an eternity, stretch it. That's what
I love that phrase. You take the moment and stretch it into an eternity. Like, it's so powerful.
And then it was also feeling him when he froze time not to let go of his father, and so his father wouldn't die. But it was all, to the point is that, like, all of the actions coming down to those moments, those human moments that we relate to, the character moments, because that's what life is. That's what life is all about. In the end, it's about our relationships and our feelings.
Well, and I think that's the important part of things, is that, like, we all like the epic moments, we all like the big fights, but it's those human moments that connect us to those big moments.
Yeah.
And make it resonate, right?
It's like what I was trying to get at with the power on its own. The power of Grayskull on its own it's boring. But what does power mean to Skeletor? What does it mean to Adam? What does it mean to Adora? Then it's like, now it's a story. Now it's personal.
Yeah.
Now it's human, or demonic in the case of Skeletor.
For sure. So real quickly, since we've kind of brought her up, and I know a lot of people have speculated and have asked, and I know it's been said that She-Ra won't appear in Revolution because of the character's entertainment rights. Can you kind of explain that complication to us?
I can't get into unfortunately, I can't really speak to the finer points in it. I mean, rights issues are always interesting and complicated. It's not, but it's not for lack of desire on anyone's part, but they're not on screen together. There's definitely, I mean, it's all the same story. It's all Masters of the Universe. I mean, they're twins, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
So I think, I can't get into really the finer reasons for it. But I will say that, there's many ways, there's wills and ways and good people who have strong desires for things, and you never know. Just know that everybody involved on Masters of the Universe, not just me, everybody involved would love it to happen.
Awesome. Cool. So when we go back to Revelation and kind of the build up to that, and the conception of it, the production of that whole of everything, I've talked with Ted about this and the meetings he had with you and getting this off the ground.
We had you want to hear?
Yeah, I'd like to hear your side of things, because I love this kind of stuff.
On Revelation, particularly. So in Revelation, it started with a breakfast with me and Teddy. I mean, we hadn't been introduced to each other. We'd met at a Super 7 event party, I think, at San Diego, like even before that, a year before that. So, we had met and talked, but we hadn't really just sat down and be like, what would be fun to do. And we had a terrific breakfast. I'm blanking out on the name of the restaurant, and Teddy says he doesn't even think it's there anymore, but we were just having waffles and pancakes, and we're talking about what we loved about He-Man and what would be really cool, and and how we could ever do something together with it, because he's at Netflix and I'm at Mattel Television, and we're just like, what can we do? And he had he had liked the DC comics too. He liked some of the kind of the more Shakespearean quality, or like I don't want to, Shakespeare is Shakespeare, but you know what I mean. The more kind of
trying to dramatic
set to it.
Yeah,
and he's done amazing stuff at Netflix in that regard. And he'd worked with Powerhouse too on Castlevania at the time. So he had talked about that, and he wanted to do, he's like, wouldn't if we did something where it was really, really serious, and we just start from the beginning. And I knew that we were also, was doing a reboot with the CG animated series with Netflix, with Megan Casey was the Netflix exec on that show, and she's terrific. Megan is wonderful, but that was a starting over from the beginning. So I was like, well, what if on this show, what if we made it more classic based, and we just kind of started after the 80s, and kept the story going. And let the CG show be like a new Meet Prince Adam. And this one, because we both felt like there have been so many times in which we've, with the 2000X show, which is terrific. There's so many times in which MOTU gets going and then it stops right before certain things happen, and it wouldn't be great to keep on going. So then we just talked about things that were really important to us. A lot of what we're doing now. What are the themes? What are the main story points? Teddy is a huge Sorcerer's fan too, so he was like, well, what can we do to keep moving her forward, and what can we do on the He-Man side? And so we just started. I went back to Mattel, he went back to Netflix, and we just started getting other people excited about it. And Teddy was talking to Powerhouse. He had their team. He'd reached out to them, and Eddie Nunez did some really cool concept sketches of like the kind of grit and realism we would do there. And then I had suggested Kevin Smith because I liked Kevin's comic book runs, and I thought he could bring some of that passion. And I went to Kevin's house with Adam Burnett, who was at Mattel at the time, and talked to Kevin about what the property was, and Kevin got excited about it, and then he signed on. And then I went to Kevin's house with Melanie Shannon, who's a creative manager and exec at Mattel Television. We went to Kevin's house, and we were looking for what that story might be. And I had done a story, I'd written a story for Mattel called The Fall of Eternia, which, there was years ago. This was probably around 2014, I think. Mattel was trying to come up with relaunching MOTU, and I had written a story called The Fall of Eternia, which that project never came to fruition. But I took elements of Fall of Eternia and reworked them into the DC Comics, into a lot of the Subternia stuff and the She-Ra stuff and the Eternity War. And I think Scott Knight, on the Matty Collector, took elements from my outline for Fall of Eternia and put it into like the toy line and the miniatures. But there was a kernel of the story which hadn't been done before, which started off with the cataclysmic story, final battle between He-Man and Skeletor. And in my pitch for it, my story, like He-Man, in order to defeat Skeletor once and for all, he has to break the Sword of Power. So he breaks the Sword of Power, and Skeletor is seemingly killed, and He-Man reverts back to Adam, but now the sword is broken, but peace has been restored to the land. And then you flash forward a few years later, and you see the world they're living in now, where Adam has not been He-Man for like many years, but he's created a new peace. And then surely evil starts to come back, and it seems that Skeletor is not totally dead, and he's coming back, and maybe Hordak is coming, and then Adam now has to go on this journey through Subternia, which, if you remember the DC Comics, it made more into like a hellscape instead of He-Man Adam, because there is no He-Man, has to go on the journey to reclaim his sword and then forge it back into He-Man. So the idea was that, like, just like you and I loved He-Man as a kid, we hadn't had He-Man has been away for a while. We haven't been able to play He-Man for a while, and that was kind of like the meta kind of thing, the feeling evoked. But Adam, like us, was going to go on a journey to reforge his childhood strength and be He-Man again. And Kevin loved that, and he really loved that. But he said, well, wouldn't it be even more powerful if in destroying the sword he sacrifices himself, and He-Man and Adam is dead. And I thought that was really, really, really dramatic, and equally dramatic, and in some ways even more dramatic. And I know that a lot of times people have gotten like, oh, you killed He-Man and everything, and I want to tell you, like, people like think that it's like, oh, they had some political agenda, and they were trying to, I don't even know what they're talking about. Like, literally, I mean, honestly, like, and if you go on that story, and I remember being in the room, like, who's the person who would then go on the journey to bring back He-Man and the sword? And of course it's Teela, right? Mm-hmm. Of course it's Teela, and dramatically, and we all know these characters. That is the whole point. And I can totally understand. Kevin totally understands. Teddy totally understands, like, why people would feel like, oh, we've waited this long for a He-Man cartoon, and then you've taken him off the stage right away. And definitely didn't help that, and this is not our choice, but for marketing reasons, we divided the 10 into 2 5s, so that, like, there was a gap, so people are like, you killed him forever. And so we totally get that. But then when people go into a whole other universe of political conspiracies and agendas, and it's like, what are you even talking about? That's not so. In any case, it was what Kevin was, it's a classic improv, like yes and, when his yes and of having it not just be He-Man removed, but literally he dies, was so that we can now feel what He-Man meant in relief because of his absence. So now we get to talk. We're talking about He-Man all the time. What does he mean? Why does it? I mean, the beautiful speech that I think it was Tim who wrote about from Duncan when he's trying to explain to Skeletor what He-Man means. I mean, I thought that was really terrific. And then we just, over the course of that many hours at his house, me, Melanie, and Kevin and I, we just kind of like batted around and shaped it. And then we had to, I think it was literally the next day, or maybe the next week, the three of us went to Netflix, and Kevin pitched it then out to Teddy, and Teddy had some terrific ideas to add to it. Because we're all storytellers, right? He added some amazing things there, and then also really kind of crystallized it for Kevin in terms of like, treat it like Shakespeare. I mean, treat it like and then we just brought together writers. Tim Sheridan is somebody who Teddy is good friends with, known him forever, and I know him as well, and have worked with him before. So he was like a mutual, like Teddy and I are both like jam, right? Kevin had some amazing people he brought in, and then we just had writer room sessions, and Teddy wasn't there in the beginning, and I mean, it's very rare for an exec to come in, but he's so passionate about it, and he's so smart, and then we were just all working on this, shaping it together in the room. And Kevin was amazing because Kevin was never, Kevin comes from film, right? Where he tells me, he's like, whereas just him, it's like the dictator, it's a benign dictatorship, and television is more collaborative and you have a room and you have writers, but Kevin was such a brilliant steward and bringing out great ideas and shaping them and pivoting them. And it was really, really great. And Kevin, another thing, there are a lot of people who love what he did and what we all were trying to do. And then there's people who just take shots and are angry. Yeah. Some of them I think have legitimate reasons. I actually think feedback is really, again, like I can understand, like if you feel like you wanted something or this is a like tone or whatever, but some of the personal anger and stuff like that, like I can tell you, I didn't know Kevin before this. I do now. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met, and he's legit a fan. When people say, oh, he's a fake fan, he is not. And if he didn't know as much as you do, he did his homework. He got the encyclopedia, and he would just mark it and just completely dive into it. He takes it very seriously, and throws his heart into it.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to remember, is that fans can come into a fandom at any point in their life.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing excluding us from becoming a new fan of something.
Right. And so you kind of also want someone who's not like, Teddy and I have drank Teddy and I are like, we're wearing He-Man underwear, for God's sake. I mean, we're already in it. You need someone like, listen, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, right? So you may have noticed some of the cast on these two shows, and Kevin's a Star Trek. We're all Star Trek fans. But I bring it up because of Wrathacon, right? Nicholas Meyer wasn't a fan, right? But he loved Horatio Hornblower. And then when he heard that was Roddenberry's inspiration, he's like, oh, I get it. And then he was able to kind of express it and add something, an extra texture to it, because he wasn't just like, if he were just a fan, he'd be like, oh, they have to be exactly that. But he found a way of expressing it very true to itself, but with a particular quality to it. There's always going to be, like, you want that with Kevin has something where he knows genre fiction. He knows how to tell stories about heroes. But he also isn't just completely, you don't want a guy who's just completely like has the encyclopedia already pre-memorized, because then there's no innovation. It's very challenging. It
kind of creates a blinder situation,
completely.
Working with animals, it's got horse blinders on, and so you don't see the bigger.
You're so right about that. And also, like, people forget, like, it was all new to you at some point. Like, there was, at some point, none of these characters existed. None of the storylines existed. And the danger is, as a fan, you basically lock yourself in on whatever it was at a certain age, 9, 10, and then you basically, what you're asking for is exactly the same thing to release your dopamine nostalgia thing. And you don't, like, it's like, I'm not saying you need that. You have to have the core principles. You absolutely have to be core to the central premise and understand why it works, and can't break it. And there's a different lines what people think are broken or not, and that's all legitimate. But you just have to also not freeze things, because things that are alive, and all of us want MOTU to be alive, have the capacity to surprise you. Have the capacity to if it doesn't surprise you, it's dead. It's so, and that's clearly what we're trying to do is find ways to keep that excitement going.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that's how I approached it when I went into Revelation. Obviously I'd seen all the negativity that was happening even before the show launched, and I tried to go into it with an open mind and just keep that nonsense out of it. And I went into it, and what I saw was, I was like, okay, this is telling a story of what happens next. I know what happens with Filmation. I know what happens with 2000. I know what happens with the comics. I want to see what comes next. I don't just want things rebooted again and again, over and over,
Right.
And so I enjoyed it. I was in.
I'm glad you did. But again, it's okay if people don't. It's okay if you think like tonally, right? Like,
sure.
Listen, we had the kid central show, which is not too young. I think like the CG show by design is trying to be, I don't say all ages. I mean, it's really, it's something where I think adults can watch it, and it's definitely the whole family can watch it, but it doesn't exclude, and it's trying to be relevant to a younger audience, right?
Right.
And Revelation, you have something where you have the fan base that we're going for now adults, right? So you can play in more of an adult space and have to raise the stakes and raise the consequences and get deeper into the emotions. But I totally get if you're somebody who says like, but tonally that's not my. Like, I really love the fact that it was genuinely, for a younger audience. I love the quality of filmation. That's where I find it happy, and I don't want to go outside. And that's totally legitimate. Like, and again, nobody, me, Teddy, Kevin, anybody, like no one is going to be like, there's a right way to like something. There's a right way. You don't like our show, then you're wrong. Of course you're not wrong.
Right.
I do think that sometimes where I draw the line is if it gets personal with people, or if it seems to be, if they're concocting things that they could clearly not know, right? Like, right. And they think that there's some type of like agenda, or I mean, look, sometimes you have like-minded people who believe similar things, and we're not, but nobody's sitting down, here is exactly how we need to get some kind of political. That's ridiculous. We're all doing it from a place of story and character.
Right. Yeah, and there's a definite difference between criticism and honest criticism and just being mean-spirited and insulting.
Right.
Because and people can tell where, on what side of that spectrum people land in talking about any fandom,
Yeah, so. For sure. But I mean, we hope you like this. We definitely, that being said, we understand what people want more of. And we want to kind of put more of our chips on that central conflict between He-Man and Skeletor from the get-go, and yet still have it feel organic. And an organic next chapter from the story we were telling. That's the hope. It doesn't feel like, it's completely different. But it's the emphasis is on the on Adam's story and Skeletor's story, and as it relates to the conflict with Hordak.
Okay, well, cool. And so go with Revelation releases, and then there's how much time passed between the end of Revelation and getting Revolution greenlit to move forward with another season.
I'm so bad with time. I have the worst sense of like time memory. Like, it's such a sliding scale. I mean, definitely it wasn't it wasn't preordained. It wasn't like, we had to go through a greenlight process. We'd only had the initial order for Revelation was just 10 episodes. The CG show was 26 episodes. This was 10 episodes. So we had to, and for Netflix, 26 is a lot, and 10 not that many, but like, I mean, it's a different world than when we were growing up, where it's like 26 was one season, you know, for Netflix now, 26 is like a show, right? It's like the whole show. But in any case, there's so we had to kind of cross that certain threshold, which we did. And there was definitely certain things that Kevin really wanted to do. The opening of Revolution, you should know, is an idea that Kevin had like when we were doing Revelation. It's kind of got a Return of the Jedi feel to it, and you'll know what I mean when you see it. But there's something he really wanted to do, which I think was terrific. And Teddy and I also, you know, he and I just kind of like started also mapping out arcs and different things were exciting to us. And then we worked with, you know, we talked with Kevin about it. We brought in Tim and Kevin, Teddy and Tim Sheridan and I basically, you know, broke the story over a period of time. And then Tim and Kevin did some finessing, and then we just basically just the four of us, you know, it's three of us bringing Tim. We just kind of continue to mold it. And I think we had again, I'm terrible with time. I think we had the green light by that point. And then we were really excited to get going. I mean, of course, you want everyone to come back. You want to bring the band back together, and Powerhouse is incredibly important to that. And they are such great partners. Are so passionate about it. And then Bear and his team back. Oh my God, Bear!
Awesome.
He's so cool. Everyone's like really. I mean, everybody in the television. We're all geeks, you know. We're all. I mean, no one is doing this. No one is doing this because they just, you know, you're trying to cash in or just doing this. I mean, like, you know, when I started at Mattel, I was really amazed by the people working on these stuff. They really care. I mean, the Barbie team, they believe it. You know, they really do, and they are so passionate about it. And the same thing on the action figure side, on the He-Man line. Like, everybody really wants this. Like, our CEO Enan, who really believes in Masters of the Universe, you should really understand that Enan believes in it. He's passionate about it, and he believes in it because he looks at it. He's like, "This is the coolest thing ever! Like, this has to be on the screen. This has to be do more of this." Like, it was a dormant property, right? It's not. If you're literally counting. If you're a bean counter and you're just trying to, that's not where you would think that's not the intuitive place to put your chips. It's purely because, you know, someone like Enan looked at it and said, "This is just insanely amazing. Like, we should do." So, and that's just on Mattel, let alone on Netflix. I mean, Teddy's passion and knowledge and talent MOTU could power Castle Grayskull, right? And then you have people like at Powerhouse, you've got Adam and Patrick, the directors. That's just naming two people. I mean, Stage and Shane and all the people on the production side too. But Patrick and Adam, they like, you know, Patrick invented a new He-Man language because we needed some symbols on the side of the door of Eternia, and he's just like, "Well, let me create an entire language." You know, oh my God, and there's so many people I guess I mentioned, and Susan, who is our producer on the show. I mean, everybody is just. Anyway, I'm gushing just because I want to convey, just how much people care. Doesn't mean we get things right.
Sure.
Doesn't mean we're going to please everybody, right? But there's no shortage of passion. And Kevin will just be like, he just saw something, and he'll talk about how it was moving to him and what he was trying to do. So anyway, I'll shut up on the passion stuff. I really just want some kinds of, because you don't know sometimes, and then sometimes when things are announcements and it's just there's a press release and stuff like that, you don't get to just kind of. I want you to see the know about these people and just how much they care. Yeah,
definitely. No, I like that, and I like hearing that people are passionate about something that is my number one, fandom.
Yeah.
Like, that's reassuring to me as a fan.
Masters is so rich. I mean, Masters is so. It is like this. It's like this stew that people just kept throwing things into, right? Like, it's like sci-fi and Magic and John Carter and Star Wars and Flash Gordon, and like he just couldn't, and it comes out this really weird. Isn't it truly weird? Isn't it just so weird? And I mean,
it's fantastic. And I have a friend group, and they're just slightly younger than me by a few years, and so they didn't grow up with MOTU like I did.
Mm-hmm.
And in talking to them, it's always funny because I'll show them a picture of an action figure, and the game we play is like, okay, well, what's this guy's name? And then they try to guess the name based on how MOTU figures are named. And there's so many goofy answers that come out of it, but I mean, that's the fun of Masters of the Universe is you have a skunk man that's named Stinkor, and
yeah,
I mean, it's fantastic. And it's just, it really is. It's like what it's like you said, it's just like a big melting pot amalgam of everything we love.
And yet it's got this heart. It's got this beating heart of self-empowerment. And,
yes.
and I said this before, what I love about it, people always, look at He-Man. He exemplifies something that's going on for all of the different characters. I mean, the idea is that Adam has got something incredible inside him, and the sword is like a key, and he unlocks it, and it releases his best self, right? Like, but all of the characters have some defining aspect of themselves that if they can recognize it and master it, and they can come up, they can just unleash tremendous power. Like someone like Stinkor, right? I mean, his whole thing is he smells so bad, right? He smells so bad, and if he could have easily, that could have depressed him, and he could have stayed in bed all the time and just ruminated on how bad he smelled. But he turns it into this greatest power, right? I mean,
he weaponizes it.
He weaponizes it. Now, unfortunately, it's for evil, right? But I mean, but that's the thing. He's got his thing, and he's proud of it, and he does something with it, and that's true of all the different characters. And I think the best, I don't want to sound corporate, but franchises or IPs, if you look at the ones that really survive and flourish, they've got some universal truth to it, some emotional, and this is getting back to what you were talking before, like those little moments. They've got some beating heart to it that makes you, that you can then use that, and you can hang all the weirdness on it. So you can have all the weird, which is the texture is what makes it fun and stands out. It's like nothing like it is both. Master of the Universe is both like everything else and like nothing else at the same time. And then at the heart of it is this beating heart of, I have the power, and you have the power, and you have the power, and it's terrific.
Yeah, I love it. So I guess kind of looking forward, let me pull up my notes here real quick. Looking forward with Masters of the Universe as a brand or as a franchise, what is the future of Masters kind of look like at this point? Or is it in a good position to move forward? I mean, I know a lot of fans were bummed that the news of the movie cancellation at Netflix happened.
Yeah.
But that doesn't take it off the table.
No, and I work on television, so I don't want to speak for my brothers and sisters and comrades in the film department. But I will say, obviously, movies are a huge bet. I mean, like I was trying to say before, like comics is just low risk, then you have cartoons, you have a live action TV show. When you get up to a feature, the amount of money, the amount of a risk that's taken on something like that is astronomical, right? And then you combine that with an industry the way it is right now, as you can see. I mean, Netflix was having problems with the stock and financially, but it's not just Netflix. Across the board, there's kind of a contraction, and now we've got writer strikes and SAG strikes, which I'm very sympathetic for and understand completely. But you get into a situation where it's just difficult for anything to get made. So it's not. I wouldn't want anybody, again, speaking from my corner, like on television about something that I'm not, on, but I wouldn't want anyone to misinterpret like that there's somehow a lack of belief in the power of Masters of the Universe. There's just sometimes difficulties with realities of economics that don't make it viable at a particular juncture. But I can say that everybody at Mattel is incredibly revved up and trying in getting Masters out there, and definitely see the potential in the film. And I think anyone looking at it can see how insane a live action Masters of the Universe would be, whether it's on in the theaters or whether it's a television show or something. I mean, live action, it's essentially, it's like it's Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones meets Guardians of the Galaxies or Marvel. I mean, it's like it's fantasy with superheroes, with I mean, it's just, and the amount of worlds and characters. So I think, I saw the article. I don't think the article doesn't have all the information, and I think there's absolutely a future, and I think there's definitely possibilities that I think are actively being pursued.
Awesome, that's good. And I'm sure, I mean, this is just speculating, but I'm sure the success of Barbie that's happening right now with the Barbie film,
isn't that amazing? Isn't it so great?
Fantastic.
Yeah. It's so great. I'm so happy. I mean, like to see that movie come out and connect and make the impact it did. And it's an amazing time. I mean, I started at Mattel in 1947. No, I'm kidding. But I started Mattel. Basically, I was recruited as a writer because I had been working on animation as a writer and a story editor and a producer. And they recruited me to be the first in-house writer to help them shape stories for their IP inside. Because the idea then was to really kind of like Mattel, transition Mattel from just being a toy company, and toys are amazing. We all love toys. I mean, look at your house, my house. I mean, but seeing that like there's a world of story and universe. It's like the way that Marvel Comics was a comic book company, and then they could expand out. And it's like now Spider-Man isn't just a comic book. He's not just a movie. He's also a bath towel and a cartoon, and he's an idea, right? The same thing was Mattel was trying to transition into not just being about the plastic toy, but really kind of see it as a larger play as an IP driven company. And there were fits and starts in terms of how to get that together. But then in the last few years, Jan came in as CEO, and really from the top down was trying to kind of drive it, being a toy company, but drive it as an IP company. And everyone is really committed to that. I mean, it's like something like Barbie is a doll, but we all know that she's more than just a plastic doll. She represents aspirations, dreams, fears, tensions, politics, culture, love. I mean, it's like you name it. And so Mattel is really organized to really, I don't know, just explore that to its full capacity across the board. And there's so many ways of doing it. Comics, I'm a love of comics publishing, keeping the story alive for fans wherever they are, however they are.
Yeah, awesome. Love to hear it. I kind of want to talk a little bit about the CG series that you worked on. You were saying earlier, adults could watch it too. I think my kids are entering their teenage years, so it's kind of hard to get them excited about anything these days. But I mean, I sat down and watched that show with them, and I was falling in love with it, because it looks different. It looked different to what I'm used to with Masters of the Universe, but the heart is there completely, and Adam's still Adam. And
thank you.
And so I applaud that. Is that series, is it over for sure, or is there a possibility for more?
So we're not in production for Netflix. We're like I said, there was that 26 episode was a big order, and then you combine that with the realities of the economics of the current situation and the kind of the shrinking. I think an investment in more of that show just didn't fit the model for what they needed at the moment. But again, I have to tell you, Megan Casey was a tremendous advocate and a great partner at Netflix on it. And so we're not doing any more for Netflix, but the story has legs, and definitely has plans. We have plans to like get more of the story out there. So there's a whole, I mean, that show was, and I'm talking about passion a lot, but that show and was the reason why I was recruited to Mattel, and it is a total labor of love, and the people on that show that I got to work with are amazing across the board, and I appreciate that you really thought that you could see the heart in there. I mean, there was no decision. I didn't make any decision blind to the legacy of MOTU. I mean, really was trying to how do you distill things to their core concepts and then re-express them, in ways that I think would be fun and exciting to a next generation. And even sometimes if I'm dividing characters, or if I'm taking a character like Duncan, right? Like nothing, like matter can't be created or destroyed. I mean, it sounds like something Duncan might say, but like you take a character like an archetype like Duncan, you've got the mentor and you've got the inventor and you've got the, I didn't want, if in making Duncan, putting him on level with the kids, I didn't want to grown up with them all the time, so to speak. I didn't want because the way it was shaping, I used to write for Ninja Turtles, and you always wanted to give Splinter a headache, right? Like you couldn't come out with them. You kind of want to have them to be able to do this. So Duncan on the field needed, in terms of the human character, the kids, I want to lean into the inventor aspect of it, and this somebody who was reinventing themselves, someone who maybe grew up, and the danger is that he would think of himself as a tool of Cronus, of Trapjaw, and now his arc would be about reinventing himself, right? But the other part of Duncan, the mentor part, was important to me. So, and I thought it would be really wonderful to explore it with Cringer. And because it's like you move one piece here, and I knew I wanted to not have Adam grow up in the palace. I wanted to get him out of it. I love Adora. I'm rambling a little bit, but I have some things to say. But like Adora has such a compelling story, where she has to kind of like realize who she is and she has to kind of earn a lot of the stuff that she's doing. And Adam was so protected, and I love Adam, so I'm not like clearly it works, and I love it. But Adam had like, especially when we first meet him, there's a story of how he earns a sword, and the Mike Young show got a chance to kind of show the moment where he gets the sword. But he's a prince. He's got, how many sets of parents does he have? He's got like his natural parents, then he's got Duncan, who's also a parent, then he's got the sorceress, who's a parent, he's got like bulging muscles from the get, he's like so he's already the prince. I mean, he's so back when we were kids growing up, a lot of times you had heroes who were insta heroes and just kind of like already presented to you as like perfect. And there's something interesting about kind of like starting off with nothing and showing the progression, especially when you have masters of the universe, with mastery, of showing the progression of how they kind of come into their own. So I wanted to move Adam out of the castle, and then I thought it would be great to link it to the mini comic. I'm a mini comics fan because I got into the MOTU before even Filmation, and he was a jungle that comes out of the jungle tribe. So having him come out of the jungle tribe and then linking it with cats and how he gets and then have it be, then that would give a chance to have a new flavor to it. And so some of Cringer is old Duncan, And this is a testament to how rich these characters are. There was the other aspect of Man at Arms, which is the father figure to Teela. So again, I love it a lot. So I know that if I'm moving things around, there's that mentor to Teela, there's the father to Teela, and I don't want to throw any in the garbage because it's too good. So I gave it to Manny Faces. So if you look at somebody as rich, I mean, I know there's somebody out there going like, well, why did you have to do that at all? Just keep the same exact thing. But it's part of it is trying to find new ways to express it and allow for characters to kind of go on a journey and how the narrative would dictate it, but not losing anything, not throwing anything away, because it really is legit awesome. And what were we even talking about? I just kind of went on a tangent.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, but so I have a story that I wrote out, and only Jeff Matsuda and Melanie Shannon know it. It was a story for the season, the the next season. They knew it. I told a little bit to Brian, but like the Jeff knows it, of course, and he designed it. And it was really about the Horde, and I'm really leaning into the kind of horror film aspects of the old archetypes of the evil Horde, and them being, you have Havoc and you have Grayskull, so there's this new other power, which is fear, that fear exists in the universe, and it's been there since the beginning. And Hordak is the fear incarnate, and he feeds on all of anyone's terror of all life forms across the galaxy. And the thing that disrupted that fear was the forging of the sword of power. It was hope in a blade. And it's come back. It went away for a while, and believe it, maybe Hiss had something to do with the evil Horde. I mean, he is like I'm not telling too much. I don't know, but
no.
Adam has the sword, and now hope came back. And at the end of season 3, you saw that he shared the power. I was kind of invoking Eternity War at the end. So he's now sharing out the power of Grayskull. So now hope is alive in a way that it's in a really huge way throughout the universe, which doesn't sit well with fear incarnate. So he's now going to make his move. So there's a whole storyline with the Horde Invasion, and then of course Marlena, which was something definitely I had plans for, and Despara, who's sitting on my I will not tell you who it was under the helmet.
Who is she?
Well, Despara it can be anybody. That's the beauty of Despara.
Okay.
Despara concept is She-Ra agnostic. I mean, it's Despara is her own character, or doesn't even say who says it, even her. So you can lift up the helmet, and it could be you, it could be me. It depends on what we're able to do. I'll tell you. But I have a whole storyline worked out. I'm excited about it. It's it has many twists and turns, and definitely we have plans to keep it going.
Okay, cool.
I can't say where, but definitely plans.
Awesome. The moment I fell in love with the CG series, because I was watching it and I was enjoying it and laughing and along for the ride, but the moment where there's the flashback sequence of Keldor, in Grayskull confronting Eldris and trying to take power and everything, and then we see young Adam step between Keldor and Eldris to protect Eldris.
Yeah.
The rush of emotion I felt seeing that, and seeing Adam being the hero, even in that moment, as young as he was. I think that was the moment that solidified it for me personally. This is a He-Man show.
I'm glad, and I remember. I mean, that moment is pivotal, and to kind of bring it back, and then it gets back to what we were talking about before in terms of Adam being able to let go of power, and Skeletor never being able to let go, and Skeletor jumps into the Havoc at the end, which I think was Melanie's idea. She said you really have to have him jump into the Havoc thing, which was terrific. But I told you that I was working on the show for a long time, and one of the first ideas I had for it, and it was Gabe Delatorre, who was the art director he now works on Hot Wheels, but he was working on MOTU for the time, and he designed most of the characters for Eternity War on the variations, and he's a good friend of mine. But the Skeletor holding the staff and having a bone hand and chained to it is exactly what I was trying to talk to you before, which is that, like, he's so the opposite of Adam. He will never let go of this thing, even if it costs him his humanity, even if it's decaying him, and so much so, like, that he chains himself. He's chained. Right? I mean, that's like, so visually, it was just like,
it's fantastic, and it's horrific, and it's awesome.
And then Adam, of course, he just stands up. He grabs it to protect her, and Eldris knows she was right. She's making the right, and this is the guy. This is the one who can do this. But he can't do it alone. That's the other thing about this show is it was always there. It's always there. People go, oh, it's we have the power now. It was always we have the power.
That's always what it is.
It's just now just stating it, stating it. But there was always that aspect to it, and it was really fun to just kind of work in like a new way of having a mythology on it and having the power of Grayskull and how it could bring out the best sides of you, and the same thing having the corollary on the, one of the things I love is that, you can see the Revelation poster based on inspired by the vintage work, is that like you've got the good guys and the bad guys, and they're so yin and yang, and they're so clearly reflective of each other. And there was just something fun for the CG show. I thought like, hey, it was always the subtext. Let's just have fun making it the text for a little bit. Let's So that was a pure label of it. And that's another show that we had such a joy, working on it. Anyone who watched it seemed like the only problem it has is people don't really know about it. Mattel has done its own testing and Netflix has its own testing, and both the testing shows that like if you watched it, you liked it. I mean, generally speaking, and I respect it. Someone who says I watched it and I hated it, I respect that. But generally, the data shows that like if you watched it, you really liked it. Many people don't even know it exists at all. Like it's just like awareness is very low. So it's got a very passionate so it's really sometimes it's challenging to break through, in terms of like on awareness. But it does continue to grow, and the publishing did well. The books have sold, and if you love ancillary storylines, like all those 3 books published by Abrams are in continuity and are filled with things that pay off. There's a Zodak reveal in his relation with Eldris that's in the Teela one that just came out. If you're a fan of the comics from DC, the Horikoth is what Hordak is trying to bring about in the next generation of stories. There's a mythology on Zor and where Eldris comes from and how it relates to Zodak. I can shut up. I'll shut up, but
you are just fine. I love it. I'll listen all day.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I mean, everyone's throwing something into it. Can't wait for you to see more of Motherboard. Teddy was so excited
for her.
That was his idea. Motherboard's Teddy's idea.
Fantastic.
He just, he came up with he's like, what if it's real? And then we dove in and talked about how it had the backstory, how it connects to ancient Eternia, which was once. Anyway, I digress, but I just want to say that everybody, there's a lot of geeky excitement.
Awesome
around it.
Going back to Motherboard real quickly, and this is a toy question, so if you don't know the answer, that's fine. But she's the convention exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if there's any plans to release her as a standard retail release like past exclusives have been?
I wish I did. I don't.
Okay.
I don't we have such a great relationship between I'm on the content side and they're on the toy side, and we share and stuff like that, but we don't necessarily, don't have privy to all of the different facts on both sides. And definitely I don't want to, even if I knew, I wouldn't want to come out here and say
sure.
Have them be like, oh, man,
shouldn't have said that.
Why'd you say
that? As far as the DC Comics master storyline that you worked on, is there any possibility of those character designs making their way into toy form?
Love that. I've kind of made the team know about them. I mean, Despara made it into a figure form. Are you talking about specifically the DC
yes.
that time period? Yeah, I want the Eternia War He-Man. I want War Wraith. I want Adam and his costume. I want all of that stuff. I even want what they used to call the New 52 He-Man. I know that wasn't very popular, but get it out there with his red armor. Yeah,
I do think it's cool that at least, you can correct me obviously if I'm wrong about this, but I saw that design incorporated into the CG design for He-Man.
Yes, definitely. There's elements of it. There was a balance. It's so funny because listen, here's the thing. I love He-Man so much, right? Okay. I've been on so many times where where Mattel, and this is not even with content, with anything. I've seen data reports. I've seen, when they tested the Mike Young series, I've seen the toy line. Kids, if you didn't grow up when we did in the 80s, you and I grew up where having a hugely roided out guy with no shirt, barely any pants, oiled up was just like, that was the air we breathed, right?
Yeah, it was amazing.
It was amazing. But like Conan, you wouldn't have to explain it. We just got it. I mean, I mentioned Rocky earlier. It's like, all the Schwarzenegger, all of that stuff. And I kid you not, if you show most kids, especially and any kids, my kids, I mean, my kids look at what they know who their dad is, so they're compromised. You can't even ask them. But if you ask those kids, you show them something like that, they're like, "Why the heck is he naked? What is he? What is going on?" They don't like. They're living in an iPad age, right? They're living in so it's just a different type of aesthetic and texture. So the challenge with that, right, is if you're trying to now bring them He-Man, is how the heck do you, like, you can reinterpret Spider-Man, but you can, how do you redesign what He-Man's wearing when he's not wearing anything, right?
Right.
And then if you start putting stuff on him, when is he not He-Man anymore? I tell you, anyone who's trying to solve this is doing it in good faith. No one is
sure.
Like, there's just certain realities. So now it's like, I remember talking to Penny Dreadful, who I think is terrific.
She is. I love her.
I know her real name's not Penny, but I'm going to call her Penny Dreadful. Danielle. But like, just in terms of like, how do you, he's known as being the most powerful man in the universe. So if you armor him up too much, then it's not his own strength. He's Iron Man. The whole point is his own strength, right? So then it's like, okay, so not too much armor, right? But then maybe it's a mixture of, you want to have the warrior vibe, and then it's like bare arms. So we went through tons of permutations. There was a moment on the CG show where I was kind of like, okay, he can be with no shirt, just put pants on. He's got no shirt. It's the Eternity War element. And you can see it in the art of the He-Man CG series, where just put on the pants, put them on pants, and have them be plated and muscled, and everybody's no shirt. And then there's kind of a question where it's like, well, why isn't he wearing a shirt? He's wearing pants. What's wrong with him? Now it becomes like almost like a fetish. Like, what, does he just want to not have a shirt? And people ask that question. You and I won't ask that because we're already in it.
Sure.
Anyone on the outside. And there's a point in which you can lose them right away. Like, they look at it and they're like, you lost me. And then you won't get them back. No one is obligated to invest time in understanding your property, right? You kind of have to get them right away. So there was that balance, and I knew that, like, I wanted to make sure he had that harness. The harness was really important, and then the symbol is also another element that's problematic. His original Iron Cross symbol was problematic, and I know some people are like, "It's not problematic. You're problematic," and I get it. I totally get it. But even if you forget any type of cultural baggage or associations around the Iron Cross, just table that for a second. There's another aspect to it which is difficult for a company like Mattel or any company. It's not ownable. You can't trademark. It's not an actual, thing. So it's then, what symbol do you use? And so we had explorations with that. We worked with also, it was in conjunction with the film team on the logo. But then it's like, but it should be red, because then your eye will be drawn to it. So I'm just saying, we're very much, always thinking about a million things and trying to have our North Star and be true to it at the same time.
And to your credit, I think people who give it a good faith effort, I think they see that. I think they see the heart that's being afforded, these different versions, and I think the positivity far outweighs whatever negativity exists out there. And
I hope so. And I know that people sometimes feel like a multiverse is a cheat. And there is a danger of having a multiverse approach to it, because the one thing I like about saying a multiverse is it just means that, like, you can relax and enjoy it, right? Like, you can no one is taking away your original, right? No one is,
and you can blur the lines a little bit between all these different things.
Yeah. Now, the danger of a multiverse is that you lessen the stakes, because it just feels like, well, this is just one of 1,000 different worlds. Then who cares if it lives or dies? There's another one, right? So there's a fine line, but for me, the multiverse is a wink to say, it's okay to have to have like re-express something in a different way. It doesn't mean that it's like the original is gone. I mean, that was one of the major reasons why Mattel committed to doing 2 different He-Man cartoons, which was that we wanted to signal that all aspects of He-Man are still open for business. We want to make lots of different stories, and we're not running away from the classic era. And by classic era, I really mean all the 80s. People sometimes, I think most people really only know Filmation, not us who are deep dive.
Sure.
We know exactly all the you were mentioning the Golden Books before we got on. I mean, we clearly, but most people, when you think, oh, He-Man in the 80s, they just think of the original cartoon.
Right.
So it's a shorthand. So I think people got confused, but our intention was always for Revelation to really be a follow-up to what we call the classic era. That means it's all the 80s. And a lot of the 80s stuff, people forget, contradicts itself, right? Yeah. Like it's not seamless. So we just kind of like all accepted it as like the background, and it was a classic. And then at the same time, we could do something for a modern day, as if He-Man were invented today.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I if I could petition for anything to happen with the toy side of things, it would be to see some of those DC designs make their way into toy form. In fact, my favorite design was Teela's gold and green armor from those comics.
Oh yes, thank you.
And I did a little bit of customization. I got to grab something off my shelf real quick to show you.
Please do that. So that was so the way those worked was Gabe Delatorre. So I would have the story for the comic, and I would kind of write up like what I was trying to do, and then I would go over to Gabe, and then Gabe would start drawing. And if I was lucky, I could sit with Gabe while he was doing it. And we weren't, don't tell our bosses at the time, but we weren't supposed to be spending that much time on the comics. So we would kind of like put up like a barrier to his desk and his cube so that people wouldn't know what we were doing. And that's how Despara, like, I'd sit there and talk about the character and the story and the inspiration. And then he would have these brilliant ideas, and he would just draw, and he was genius. So he designed her Man-at-Arms inspired costume. It was terrific.
Awesome.
Let me see.
I took a Wonder Woman figure and kind of applied the paint scheme, the color scheme.
Oh, that's great.
To her.
Oh, I love it.
So I would love to see that design in toy form, because it was my favorite from that.
Let them know
that and the snake.
Let them know, so they know I'm not just like I'm biased and close. You're like, yeah, Rob, we got it, we understand. Let them know. I would love to see that.
Awesome. Well, as I continue interviewing people, hopefully I can find someone who will listen to me.
Yeah.
That, and I want to make an official request, even if it's just for me. I want to see either a He-Man and Teela 2-pack or an Adam and Teela 2-pack, just side by side in the packaging. I could die happy at that point.
Oh yeah, that'd be wild. I would love that.
So,
yeah.
Well, yeah.
I never want to work.
They really are.
I used to work in, so now I'm working at Mattel and on the TV side, but I used to work in animation and studios there, and all the artists have toys in their desks. And I've really decided, no matter what I do in life, I don't want to work anywhere where people don't have toys in their desks.
Yeah, right.
That's the barrier of entry. No toys, not doing it.
Yep. I can agree with that. So just to kind of wrap things up a little bit, I know we've been going for a while, and I am absolutely loving the time spent with you today.
Same here.
Moving forward with Masters, I know on the comic side of thing, we currently have, there's 3 comic miniseries in the Revolution continuity with so there's the prequel series that Tim Sheridan worked on. Mm-hmm. There's the Masterverse miniseries that Tim Seeley worked on, and now there's the upcoming
where the Prime universe.
Yeah, where the Prime universe was Revelation, and then there's the Forge of Destiny that is all in the Revelation universe. Are there any other comics projects that you can talk about that are in the pipeline?
Oh, I don't know. I can't really reveal. There's going to be a Revolution based comic.
Awesome.
That will that will come out right around the time the show comes out, and carries on. I can't tell you anything about it, but carries on a particular story point from it. And that has a story from me and Teddy and Tim Sheridan. And then we have, what am I going to tell you? There's definitely, I don't know if I can say anything. There are definitely more storylines to come. And there's another thing that Tim Seeley will be working on, which is not Revelation based, but is going to be so awesome. It's going to be so great. And I think I can't say more. I can't say, well, I don't know. It'll be
if I make a guess,
if you like things like chocolate and peanut butter coming together, or
is it
or Transformers and G.I. Joe? Yeah.
Is it something that was at one point in the works that was canceled?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Would like to see renewed.
I'm so sorry.
I have one wall full of things. I have another wall full of things. I see posters on the wall behind you.
I'm so sorry. The Wi-Fi here, it's just so bad. I don't know what you're saying.
You're going through a tunnel.
Yeah. And more. And then there's definitely there are a couple storylines from Revolution that'd be really fun to follow up on. Awesome. And we're also looking at things like doing one shots too, like having I want to say that, like, people don't understand, why don't you do an ongoing series, but that's not the model. That's not the model that Dark Horse has. They do things in four issues, but it's also, economics plays a part. I mean, I think, like, they have found that that doing 4-issue arcs and then they can put into a trade sells better than just doing an ongoing series. And I don't think that's just them. I think everyone, you'll see in DC and Marvel, they reboot with a #1 every 5 seconds because they know that the era that we grew up in, where you just have an ongoing thing, doesn't seem to kind of like hit the same way. So that's why we're doing it in kind of like 4 issues. And in some ways it's kind of cool because it gives you a chance to kind of like tell a story and then tell another type of thing. Dark Horse is so committed. Like, these type of, like, working on a licensed book is their bread and butter. It is their Superman and Batman. So they are very committed to, like, doing lots of different cool things. And also I want to do more stories. We've done so many stories where it's about, like, galactic end of the world scenarios. I mean, I'm guilty of that through DC. I really just wanted to want to go for broke, right? And then some of the stuff we did with DC kind of became some of the model of what we would do with animation, because if you're going to justify doing a continuation and you only have a limited amount of episodes and you're trying to go for, I mean, it's the same reason why movies are big, epic, I mean, like, so there's a model for, like, telling those type of stories. But I think, and then a lot of the comics have been continuations of those or something like that. So I definitely think there's room, especially in comics, to really try to do, like, not have the whole world be at stake and have it be smaller, but still, to your point, more dramatic too, and have and focus more on the characters. And that's what the Forge of Destiny is really an attempt to do. And I would love to just keep doing that and try to have, like, I'd really love to have kind of like an evergreen He-Man comic that just we can do other stories and follow this and do that. But if fans and readers like me know that there's kind of like, there's still an anchor of He-Man on a kind of a normal He-Man type of adventure, would be fun. I don't know. I think fans would like that. I think that there's
I think so. I think I'd like it. I think there's an audience for it. So and it's more, I'm always of the opinion that more He-Man in my life is a good thing.
It's a good joke. And I love the people we work on it. The artists have been terrific, and my two Tims, like my Tim Sheridan and Tim Seeley. That's a total coincidence. I don't require people who work on the comics to change their name to Tim. I don't know what their name is before they started working on the comic, but they're both terrific. And it's such a, for me, I was definitely, in the DC run, I was in the weeds, all the dialogue and all, I was writing it, and it was so. And this, I'm directionally saying let's go there, and these guys are doing a lot of great work on the beat by beat storytelling, and there's such a relief knowing that you've got, like, Like I can go to bed at night knowing that Tim Seeley knows how He-Man charges his sword and knows that there's just like and Aaron as well. The Tim squared, they're just delightful.
Yeah, I've chatted with them both a few times, and it's always a joy talking with both of them. Very fun to talk to.
They're really great guys.
So, well, awesome. I don't think I have any more questions. I think we've covered a lot of ground today, and
thank you. It's such a pleasure, and really thank you for taking the time to reach out to people and give people a means to talk about this stuff and taking a moment to really just celebrate it. I mean, really, it's really. I mean, I've seen some of the other videos you've done. I think they're wonderful, and fans mean a lot. I mean, I just told a story at Comic-Con. I've told it at PowerCon too. But when I first started at Mattel, Dave Voss, who used to, he was the VP in charge of the action figure line, and he was starting the franchise entertainment side. He handed me a stack of all of the Bibles from all the different incarnations of MOTU, and I read them all, right? Which was a treat as a fan to get a hands on all those things, and I was reading them all. But then I realized really quickly that there was this other unofficial Bible of the brand, which was the fan community, like sites like He-Man.org and PowerCon, and not just He-Man.org, but just realizing how much you can learn just from hearing the fans talk about it and debate it and come up with ideas. And I mean, it's just it's like this. Because listen, I mentioned I'm a Star Trek fan, and there was this period between when the original show was canceled to the motion picture where it was just the fans, right? Yeah. And they kept it alive, and they even kept the original series on for more seasons than it was going to be, right? They kept it alive. And He-Man is like that too. I mean, honestly, the only reason I'm here working on this is because fans have kept this thing alive, and Mattel knows it. And so I really think that videos like this and PowerCon, He-Man.org, and every other way that fans get together and talk about this now is incredibly important to the lifeblood of MOTU all around. So I thank you, and I thank anybody listening to it. It's very, very, very appreciated.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, as we wrap up, where can people find you on social media and stuff like that? If you want.
I have no idea. No, I'm on Twitter. This is Rob David. You can find me on Twitter. And that's generally, where I'm not totally huge on social media. I wish I was. Kevin makes fun of me. I told him I got a Twitter account. I finally got it when we started. He's like, "Welcome to 2012," and it was already 2020. But that's generally where I am. If I'm not,
awesome.
I'm not here at Mattel.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you again for taking the time to speak with me today. Everybody who is watching this, thank you for tuning in. Please continue to tune in, and hopefully there will be other interviews in the works that are interesting. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
We'll see ya.
Bye.